sure that
What's that you're
here?
carrying around, brother? And why?
Is this a tavern? Are we at a dogfight? Violence doesn't belong here. As you well know, this is unforgivable.
Very well, brother. I accept my punishment.
Now, show me what you have on you. I must confiscate anything that's not allowed in the monastery.
While I was locked up, someone was making quite a racket in the cellar. Blind drunk, I'm sure of it. I wonder what's been going on.
Peace be with you, brother.
This is not a good time for questions, brother.
I'm a new brother, a novice, Gregor. I don't know my way around here yet. You're in charge of the whole monastery, aren't you?
Welcome amongst us. Yes, yes. The Lord wanted me to take over the abbot's duties in his absence, but mainly I'm a servant of God, just like you and all the other brethren. Before God, there's no difference between us. How do you like it here?
I don't know yet. Haven't been here long.
Well, you're too humble. I'm sure you must have some opinion, but I won't pry it out of you.
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery. Who's in charge of things around here?
Abbot Peter is the administrator of the monastery, but you won't see him. He's always traveling, and on top of that, he's old and infirm. Perhaps the good Lord will bless him with many more years of life.
And what happens when the old abbot dies?
Then we elect a new one.
Tell me something about life here.
Prayer, work, obedience. That just about sums it up.
Can you tell me something about the rule of St. Benedict?
7 centuries ago, St. Benedict of Nursia wrote a collection of monastic rules which we still follow today. They're read at every meal. The fundamental precepts are obedience, work, and prayer. We're fully devoted to serving God. The outside world beyond the monastery walls is foreign to us.
Do you never want to know what's going on out there?
And what should be going on? The sky is just as blue and the grass is just as green. Perhaps the rulers change, but the greatest ruler of them all will remain unchanged through the ages.
I'm interested in the monastery's history.
It was founded by St. Procopius 500 years ago. After his death, heretics occupied the place for some time, but then the order was restored and brothers of the true faith returned.
Heretics, you say?
They wanted to worship God with some foreign rituals in a language foreign to God. They were driven away and their books burned.
What are the roles of the various monks here?
Well, the abbot is the head, but he's not here now. Then there's the prior and the sub-prior, the librarian, the porter, and many others. As a novice, you should be particularly mindful of the circators. They're the ones who maintain discipline and punish bad behavior.
What can you tell me about the novices here?
What can I say? You're here to demonstrate your devotion to God and to live a monastic life. After a year, you can make your vows and become a fully fledged brother.
I meant something specific about the brothers that are here.
But you know them yourself. Yodok is an odd one, but he's diligent and eager, perhaps too eager. Siskin is good company, but a bit too worldly for a monk. Antonius is hard-working and will help with anything, but prays less than he ought. Lucas is as quiet as a mouse, and no one knows much about him. And then we have you, about who I know nothing.
Can you leave the monastery?
Where would you go? You have everything you need here. Anyway, all the doors here are closed and locked tight, so no one can get in or out.
Will you tell me something about how the abbot is elected?
Of course. Abbot Peter is old, and we're afraid he'll soon be with our Heavenly Father. When he's gone, someone else will have to lead the monastery. All the elder brothers will assemble to choose who that is.
Anyone can become the abbot.
Precisely. We have two candidates, Nevlas and John. As the spiritual shepherd of all of the brothers here, I'm not allowed to publicly express a preference for either. And as a novice, you shouldn't be involved in the election. I know that some brothers have already begun scheming, but don't even think about getting mixed up in it. With the blessing of the Holy Spirit, all will end up as it should be.
Toil. Their weakness must be taken into consideration by the
Peace be with you, brother.
The rule of Saint Benedict. Readings on the spirit of silence. Let us do what the prophet says.
I'm Gregor and I'm new here.
I will guard my way.
I know. I saw you in the church during the ceremony. I have a feeling we'll be meeting again soon, and often. You see, I'm a circator.
What does that mean?
I make sure everyone observes the rule, does their work, and that everything is the way it should be.
When it's not the way it should be?
Then we're authorized to mete out punishment. But certainly you won't require correction, will you, brother?
About you in the election, will you tell me more about it?
Ask me anything you want.
Tell me something about Nevlas.
Nevlas is weak and toothless. He's full of hot hair. How anyone could think he'd make a good abbot is beyond me. Enough. I don't even want to hear his name again.
I'd like to know what's going on here.
Well, the young brothers feel they don't have the same rights and responsibilities as we, who have spent much of our lives here. And what of it? Privilege needs to be earned. Neverless is lying when he says he wants to right wrongs. All he cares about are benefits for himself and his cronies.
The rule of Saint
I'd like to help you if I can.
readings on the abbot. Therefore, when anyone receives
There
the name
is
of abbot,
something you could
God
do.
to govern his disciples
I am
with
convinced
all
Neverless must have done something that would greatly damage him if everyone found out. If he was preaching water and drinking wine, for example.
So I should dig something up on him and tell you about it?
Exactly. But I doubt you'll have any luck. Neverless is too cunning and careful to give anything away.
The abbot should always remember what he is and what he is called.
I'm sorry, but that doesn't seem right to me.
He who aids a sinner sins himself. I shall pray for your soul, brother.
Let him make no distinction of persons in the
I'd like to help you if I can.
Let him not love one more than another, unless it be one
There
whom he
is
finds
something
better in
you
good
could
works
do.
or in obedience.
I am convinced.
So I should dig...
Exactly.
But since he
Once
has
I find something
authority,
out, I'll
let
tell
him
you.
cut out those faults by the roots as soon as they begin to appear.
Thank you for answering.
Remembering the fate of Heli, the priest of Silo. The well-disposed and those of good understanding, let him correct with verbal admonition the first and second time. But bold, hard, proud, and disobedient characters he should curb at the very beginning of their ill-doing by stripes and other bodily punishments, knowing that it is written, "The fool is not corrected with words."
I'm
And
Gregor,
again,
a novice.
beat your son with the rod,
I know.
and you will
I saw you
deliver
at the
him
ceremony.
from death.
My name is Neverless, and I'm the provost here. I'm in charge of the monastery's property, as well as handling trade with the outside world.
That means you get to leave the monastery.
No, not at all. I just write lists and send them out.
I have set a guard to my mouth,
Tell me about yourself.
and was humbled and kept
I'm the provost of this monastery. It's my job to ensure the monks live a humble life and that any surpluses go to the poor. But in reality, I spend all my time making sure my brother's gluttony and the construction of a new church don't swallow up the few resources we have left.
silence so important. Permission to speak should
I'm interested in the election of the new abbot.
You're not alone. Everyone's so worked up about that they spent no time considering how they could make the monastery a better place now.
Why? What's wrong with it now?
Many brothers think more about their stomachs than prayer. The older brethren bend the rules of the order to make them fit their interests. So, to balance the scales, they want the novices to lead exemplary lives. Sin abounds here, just as in the outside world.
all the humility and submission inspired by reverence.
What sins are you talking about?
Coarse jests and
The
idle
scripture says, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." I'm sorry, Gregor, it's not my place to speak about the sins of others.
permit a disciple to open his mouth. The rule of Saint
Tell me something about how the new abbot will be elected.
A new abbot has to be elected once the old one dies. All the brethren can vote, with the exception of novices. The abbot's crozier will be conferred on whoever is chosen, and he'll take the vow. When he becomes abbot, a monk spends most of his time dealing with politics outside the monastery, instead of actually leading the monastery. But he still maintains a fundamental influence on life here.
This very obedience will be acceptable to God and pleasing to men only if
Can you
what
tell me
is
about Abbot
commanded
Peter?
is done without hesitation.
Peter's wise in the ways of politics and a good shepherd, but as you've already heard, he's old and infirm.
For the obedience
The other brothers see him with one foot in the grave, but I still have hope for him. But you, brother, don't let yourself get involved in the games of your superiors.
then even though he
Could you help me with something?
With what?
his work will not be acceptable to God.
I'm interested in medicine, and I know there's a cure for the abbot's ailment.
Far from gaining
With your help, I could find out the details, and together you and I could give old Peter a few more years to do good. What do you say?
satisfaction.
You can count on my help. What do you need me to do?
In order to get the recipe for this medicament, a few rules will need to be broken. Now you know most of the brothers believe every illness is a message from God, and that it's not our place to deny his will. I, however, think if God sent us not just illnesses, but also the medicine to cure them, then it's our duty to relieve people of their suffering. The cure for Abbot Peter's illness could be contained in one of the books in our library, but it will certainly be amongst the Libri Prohibiti, the forbidden books, those we aren't permitted to read.
Why are they forbidden?
For the obedience given to
Because they contain occult and demonic practices, witchcraft and all manner of evil. Or so some people claim. It's nonsense, of course. This is nothing but a book of medicine, albeit one written by a pagan. Ibn Sina, also known as Avicenna, is universally acknowledged to be a wise man. But here, at some point, someone decided his book is the work of a Saracen devil and must be kept under lock and key. Since then, no one can even talk about the book. But the three wise men were from the East, were they not?
idleness is the enemy of the soul. Therefore, the brethren
Where can I find it?
occupied at certain times in manual labor.
In the library, there's a large cabinet with a lock on it. The forbidden books are inside. You'll easily recognize what you're looking for. The cover has not only a Latin inscription, but also Saracen letters. Bring it to me, but leave the other books there. No one will notice if one book disappears, but if more were to vanish, someone would certainly begin to look into it, which is exactly what we don't want.
Is there anything you can tell me that would help?
There's a key to the cabinet in the prior's chambers. The librarian should have another one, or you can acquire some lockpicks. But I can't tell you where or how. Perhaps Brother Salarius could help.
I'm ready.
One more important thing. There's always someone in the library during the day. To pass unwatched, you'll need to go at night. It's locked, but I'm sure you'll manage to get in. They say Brother Salarius understands locks, but don't tell him why you need it. Once you have the book, bring it to me, and I'll then use it to make Peter's medicine. We'll soon have the election of the abbot over and done with.
That is to say, he should show them all that is good and holy, by his deeds even more than by his
Is there any
words,
way I could help you get elected?
expounding the Lord's
Somehow
commandments
tip
in
the
words
scales in your
the
favour?
intelligent among
What would you like to do? Climb up the tower and shout, "Vote for Nevelis, vote for Nevelis"?
Not exactly. You do have an opponent. John.
John isn't my opponent, he's my brother, just like you and everyone else here. We are all brothers in Christ. But there is something you could help me with. You must know there's a great deal of iniquity here in the monastery. I'd be interested to hear of anything I don't know about.
Or in obedience. And let him not shut his eyes to the
Should I
faults of
find out for you
offenders,
what's going on
but
around here?
since he has the
Let me make this
authority,
clear.
let him cut out
I
those
want to
faults
base
by
my
the roots
candidacy
as
on
soon as
putting
they
things in
begin to
order.
appear.
But if I don't know exactly what's
Remembering
wrong,
the fate of Heli,
then my promises are just empty slogans.
the well
Very good then.
disposed and those
I'll
of
find
good
out what I can.
understanding,
Thank
let
you,
him
brother.
correct with verbal admonition the first and second time. But bold, hard, proud, and disobedient characters he should curb at the very beginning of their ill-doing by stripes and other bodily punishments. Knowing that it is written, the fool is not corrected with words. And again, beat your son with the rod, and you will deliver his soul from
Praise
death.
be to Christ, brother.
The rule of Saint
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery.
on the spirit of silence. Let us
Who's in charge of things around here?
Abbot Peter is the administrator of the monastery, but you won't see him. He's always traveling, and on top of that, he's old and infirm. Perhaps the good Lord will bless him with many more years of life.
And what happens when the old abbot dies?
Then we elect a new one.
so much the more of the punishment for sin.
Are there any candidates to be the new abbot?
Yes, there are. Brothers John and Nevelis, cursed elections. Since the brothers began talking about them, there's only been strife in the monastery. On one side are brothers who'd like to see John as abbot. On the other, those who support Nevelis, and they seem to be capable of fighting about it forever.
Power of the tongue. For speaking and teaching
Tell me about John.
the disciples' part is
John is the circator and the oldest brother here. It would be only natural if he took the crozier from Peter. He has experience, merit, and composure. He'd lead the monastery wisely.
and idle words or words that move to laughter. These we condemn everywhere.
I'd like to know about Nevlas.
Nevelis manages the monastery's property. He doesn't have the most experience, but his drive and heart are pure, his faith firm, and his ideas rational. Although perhaps he's too keen to change our routines here, which many brothers don't like.
Why does it matter so much who wins?
Because the future direction of the monastery hangs in the balance, the younger brothers feel they have to work more than their superior brothers, and that some brothers are more concerned with their own comfort than with worshipping God. The older brothers take a different view. They say the younger monks want privileges they haven't earned, and each side has its own candidate.
I thought politics weren't part of the monastic way of life.
You're right, but we know nothing besides the monastery, and the abbot's decisions can influence our entire life. Some of the brothers take it very personally.
And let them again do what work has to be done until Vespers. Weak or sickly brethren should be assigned.
Are there ever any disagreements between the brothers?
Unfortunately, yes. The biggest quarrels right now are about the election of the new abbot. They can already see poor Peter in his grave.
I understand.
Rule of Saint Benedict. Readings on the abbot. Therefore, when anyone
Who would you like to be the new abbot?
he ought to govern his
John,
disciples
there's no other candidate. Nevertheless just babbles on and on. Don't take him seriously.
and holy, by his deeds even more than by his words, expounding the Lord's commandments in words to the intelligent among his disciples, but demonstrating the divine precepts by his actions for those of harder hearts and ruder minds.
Praise be to Christ, brother.
Abbot should always remember what he is and what he is called.
I'm looking for something a little,
More esteemed
unorthodox.
from him
And what
more
would that be
refined.
exactly?
Let him make no distinction of persons in the monastery. Let him not love one
I'm looking for
more than another,
lockpicks.
unless it be
Lock
one whom he
picks?
finds better in good works.
And what would you like those for?
And let him not shut his eyes to the faults of offenders, but since
I'd
he
like
is
to
the
practice
authority,
opening
let him
locks,
cut
just
out
for the fun of
those
it.
faults by the
Well,
roots
why not?
as soon as they begin to appear.
So you heard I used to be a burglar, did you?
Remembering
I put it
the
all
fatal
behind
deed
me
of
as soon as I
priest
took the
of
vows.
the well
But I do
disposed
have a
those
few
who
lock
good
picks
understand.
left.
Let him correct with
I'll
will
trade
and
them for
wisdom
food.
first
Get me a
the
bite to
heart.
eat, and you can have your lock picks.
Hard,
Can't say
proud,
fairer than that, can I?
character. He should curb at the very The Rule of Saint Benedict. Readings on humility.
Aha, Gregor.
This degree of
Talk to me.
humility is obedience without delay. This is the virtue of those
I'm
who
looking for
Christ.
something a little, unorthodox.
The Holy
And what would that be exactly?
fear of hell and the glory of life everlasting
I need to get some wine.
has been ordered by the superior.
You're not the only one.
The divine
But I have to keep records of all the casks, and the prior checks on them. He'd notice any lost straight away. Just like our food, everything's rationed. So I'm sorry, but I'll have to disappoint you, brother.
commanded is done without hesitation. Delay,
No, nothing really, come to think of it.
grumbling, or objection. For the obedience
You have
of
some
the
interesting
superior
skills
is given to
for a
God.
monk.
For if the
Don't suppose you want to tell me how you pick them up?
murmurs, not
What's there to tell?
necessarily his lips, but simply
We were all young and foolish once. I was a student in Prague, completely broke, living from hand to mouth and studying all day. It wasn't an easy life.
So you turned to stealing.
and far from
I set about securing a livelihood as best I could.
punishment
A goose, some new shoes, a bit of coin to spend with my friends. Without that little bit extra, I'd never have completed my studies. I would have turned into a beggar.
Therefore,
And who else do you know that can say he's serving God thanks to having been a thief?
disciples with a tool
No one, brother. Thank you for telling me your story.
he should show them all that is good and holy, by his deeds even more than by his words, expounding the Lord's commandments in words to the intelligent among his disciples. But
I'm Gregor,
demonstrating
a
the
novice.
divine precepts
I
by
saw you at the
actions
ceremony.
of those of harder
I
hearts
know.
and ruder
It was
minds.
hard not to notice you.
Abbot should
And you are?
always remember what he is and what he is
Lucas,
called.
also a
And should
novice.
know that
Don't get upset, but I don't want to talk to you.
from
I'm
him
happiest
more
alone.
is required. Let him make no distinction of persons in the monastery.
I'd like to know something about the other
Not love
novices.
one more than
I
another,
don't know
unless
much,
it
but
be
ask
one
away.
whom he finds better in good works,
What can you tell me about Siskin?
and let him not shut
Not
his
a
eyes
lot.
to
I
the
don't
faults
know
of
him.
offenders,
Actually,
but
I don't
since
know
he
much
has
about him at all,
authority, let him cut out
except that
those
he's
faults
not a
by the
stickler for
roots
rules.
as soon as they begin to appear.
Do you know anything about Yodok?
I don't. He doesn't like me, and he's on very friendly terms with the Circators. That's about it.
But bold, hard, proud, and disobedient characters, he should curb
Tell me about
the very
Antonius.
beginning of their ill-doing by
I'd
striking
like to,
and
but
other
there's nothing to tell. I've never
Knowing
spoken
that it
to
is
him.
written,
I've never asked about him.
not corrected with words. And again, beat your son with the rod, and you will deliver his soul from death.
Will you tell me something about yourself?
There's nothing I can tell you.
I mean, where you're from, what sort of life you had before, that sort of thing.
I'm a novice, and my monastic name is Lucas. Nothing else matters.
A guard to my mouth. I was mute and was humbled and kept silence.
Come on. Is there really nothing at all you can tell me?
I could, but I don't want to. I'm sorry. I want to stay focused on work and prayer, not on who I once was. I never will be again. What has been isn't important for us. We cast the past aside when we walked through the monastery gates and took our oath. Never forget that.
Even though it be for good, holy, edifying conversation.
If you could, who would you vote for to be the abbot?
But I can't vote, so what's the point of worry? Ask Antonius. He often talks about it, and I'm sure he has an opinion.
And teaching belong to the master. The disciple's part is to be silent and to listen. And for that reason, if anything has to be asked of the superior, it should be asked with all the humility and submission inspired by reverence. But as for coarse,
What troubles you?
idle words or words that move to laughter, these we condemn everywhere with a perpetual ban.
About you in the election, will you tell me more about it?
Ask me anything you want.
The rule of Saint Benedict
I'm not really interested in all that.
Then why are you wasting my time?
is obedience without delay. This is the virtue of those who hold nothing
I'd like to help you if I can.
who, because of the holy service they have professed,
There is something you could do. I'm convinced Nevillus must have done something that would greatly damage him.
So, I should dig some...
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but that doesn't...
He who aids a sinner sins himself.
and pleasing to men only if what
Thank you for answering.
is done without hesitation. Delay, lukewarmness, grumbling.
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery.
The obedience given to superiors is given to God. For if the disciple obeys with an ill will and murmurs, not necessarily with his lips, but simply
Who's in charge of things around here?
even though he fulfills the
Oh, Abbot Peter.
And what happens when the old abbot...
Well, then we elect a...
God, who sees
Tell me something...
heart is murmuring, and far from gaining a reward for such work as this, he will incur the punishment due to murmurers, unless he amend and make The rule of Saint Benedict. Readings on the spirit of silence. Let us do what the prophet says.
Ah, Gregor, talk to me.
I will guard my ways, that I may not sin with my tongue. I have set a guard to my mouth. I was mute.
Here's the book you wanted.
Kept silence even from good things.
Amazing.
Here the
This
prophet
really is
says
it.
the spirit of
Now I can use it to prepare a cure for our suffering abbot.
from good spirit.
Then I'll leave it in the library to make it seem as if Brother Librarian left it lying about.
Make us avoid
There'll be no investigation.
Therefore,
It would be against his best interests, as he'll look like the one who wasn't taking proper care of the books.
rarely be granted
It will drive him mad. I didn't leave that book out, or did I?
edifying.
Is there anything I can do for you in return?
Speaking, you will not escape sin. And in another place, death and
I'd be interested in finding out the background of the other novices.
for speaking
That's a strange wish you have.
the master.
And the only ones who know everything about the novices are the abbot and the prior.
That reason, if
They keep a record of every monk in the abbot's book, but you'll never get your hands on it. It's locked up in the prior's study.
Thanks. You've helped me immensely.
No, thank you.
words that move to laughter,
About that book,
we condemn
don't even
everywhere
think about breaking in to get it.
And for such conversation, we do not permit a disciple to open his mouth. The rule of Saint Benedict. Readings on humility. The first degree of humility is obedience without delay. This is the virtue of those who hold nothing dearer than Christ, who, because of the holy service, they have
What do you desire, Brother Gregor?
I'm interested in the other novices. What can you tell me about Siskin?
Oh, He's always got a smile on the new friend. But I reckon he don't belong in the monastery. He spends more time dreaming of the world outside than tending to his duties. I'm surprised he hasn't been thrown out already. If it was up to me, he'd be out on his ear right away.
Sounds like you don't have much time for him.
I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. Believe me, Gregor, he's hiding something from us. In fact, now I come to think of it, I haven't seen him at morning prayers for a while.
Do you know anything about Antonius?
Only that he came to the monastery voluntarily, because he didn't want to work in his father's shop. Antonius is all right. You can rely on him. He won't betray your confidence. He's always happy to help, which is more than can be said for the other brothers.
I'm interested in Lucas.
Nobody knows much about Lucas. He keeps himself to himself. If you ask me, he's got something to hide. I'd keep well clear of him if I was you.
Do you have any grounds for suspecting him of something?
Quite a lot. And also none at all. The circators who make the rounds despise him, and they'd never punish anyone without cause.
Ah, Gregor, talk to me.
Will you tell me something about yourself?
Look, nothing against you, but I prefer not to talk about my past.
Are you hiding something? Why are you so reluctant to tell me anything about yourself?
I'm hiding a lousy past that I'd rather forget. I hate to think of all I lost when they stuck me in here. And also because I really hate the question, aren't you the son of the famed Sir Smil Flashka Pardubitz? I was rich and I had everything. But then my father began to feel his time approaching, so he decided to send a son to the monastery. And, being the youngest, the lot fell on me. I've no head for managing the estate, and they said I'd squander it. Can you imagine? Me in a monastery. So I took what coin I could from home with me, so I didn't lose out completely.
The abbot should always remember what he is and what he is called, and should know that to whom war is committed.
But you didn't have to come here if you didn't want to.
No, not if I didn't mind being left to beg alms by the city gate. I had one choice, the monastery or nothing. If it had come to that after my father's death, so be it. But to get rid of me while he's still alive...
They must have realized you robbed them.
I donated some of the silver to the monastery when I came in, just to piss them off. I can just see my siblings, arguing with the abbot to give it back.
And you stashed away the remainder?
Indeed so.
What's your plan with this treasure?
To get out of here as soon as I can. I'll wait another year or two until my hot-headed brothers cool off a bit, and then I'll take the silver and run off somewhere, far, far away from here.
That's all I wanted to know.
Please, keep it to yourself, especially the part about the coin.
How is it that you don't get any penance for missing morning prayers?
I've paid off the circators to turn a blind eye. And the other monks don't notice as long as you show your face there from time to time. No one's too awake at that time of the morning.
I'm still curious about this treasure trove of yours.
It's no big terrible secret. Really, it isn't. I just go and read during services. There's no time otherwise. I mean, at other times I don't get to read what I like. And I keep it under the slab so the others don't find it.
What kind of a book is it?
I found it here in the library. It was on a shelf where it should never have been. So I hid it to read later. It's the Necronomicon. Ghosts, demons, and invocations of powers beyond our world. Only it's written in a strange language that I can't really make sense of. All bara this and bara that. Who knows what it means? I tried to count the syllables, read the words backwards, but nothing. I'm not getting anywhere with it.
Oh, I'm not too sure what the prior or the cicada would say about a book like that. Actually, what anyone would say. It sounds quite prohibited.
Prejudice. But you're right, it is prohibited. For no good reason, though. Has knowledge ever done anybody any harm?
You're right. Knowledge should never be prohibited.
Oh, I'm glad you agree. Just take a look at the book. Maybe you'll be able to make some sense of it. I haven't grasped a single syllable. Just please don't tell anyone about the book. If the brothers learn that I took it from the library and hid it, I'll be in a lot of trouble. Our brothers' minds are closed to a thirst for knowledge.
I'll leave you be. Don't worry, I won't follow you again.
Thank you. And please, Gregor, don't mention it to anyone.
I'd be interested to hear what you think about the other novices. Tell me about Antonius.
Oh, if there was a monk I'd recommend as a friend, with of course the exception of myself, it would be Antonius. He has a calm soul, he's easy to talk to, and you can always rely on him.
I'm interested in Yodok.
What could interest you about him? He's a no-good rat. He'll turn you in for the price of a turnip. I'd bet my life that if he wasn't here, he'd be a cumin scat, bowing and scraping for a few groschen.
That doesn't sound too flattering.
It wasn't meant to. No matter what you do here, watch out for him. He's got his eye on everyone, and he'll rat on you for even the slightest of infractions.
What can you tell me about Lucas?
It's a tricky situation with Lucas. No one really knows anything about him. I've tried so many times to talk to him, but he always backs away like a virgin on a wedding night.
That's all. Thanks.
And let him not shut his eyes to the faults of offenders, but, since he has the authority, let him cut out those faults by the roots as soon as they begin to appear. Remembering the fate of Heli, the priest of Silo, the well-disposed and those of good understanding,
Please be with you,
let him
brother.
correct with verbal admonition the first and second time. But bold, hard, proud, and disobedient characters.
What is it, brother?
What do you desire, Brother Gregor?
What do you desire, Brother Gregor?
I'd like to ask you something about the monastery. Are there ever any disagreements between the brothers?
Unfortunately, yes. The biggest quarrels right now are about the election of the new abbot. They can already see poor Peter in his grave.
I understand.
Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum.
Who would you like to be the new abbot?
John. There's no other candidate. Neville's just babbles on and on. Don't take him seriously. Praise be to Christ, brother.
I'm here to work.
Excellent. I've been waiting for you. There's the alchemist's laboratory. You'll find ingredients in the chests next to it. Today's task, 2 cockerel potions. Once you finish them, you'll find me somewhere nearby. Don't forget to let me know when you're done so I can check them.